To simplify the filmmaking process, movies are made up of scenes, and scenes are made up of shots edited to different durations to tell the story. This is the guiding principle to pacing a film, and if you can control the pacing, then you've mastered one of the 3 skills I'll be teaching in this video to be a cinematic editor. We're also going to be diving into simple tools to master quick color grading, sound, and finishing your film. This is the cheat sheet to making a movie efficiently. And without further ado, I'm going to give you my 3-step formula to edit any film in any genre, quite literally action, horror, sci-fi, and even travel vlogs. It's called action, reaction, reveal. Pretty easy one to remember, and you can just keep this in your back pocket when it comes to editing. Here's how to break it down.
I told my father I didn't want this either.
Action is what's happening, setting the scene with the character or subject to what they're doing within that space. The next one is your reaction, and this is what your character is seeing or doing. Action could be running in a space, but then they hear something, so they hide behind a tree and look at what might be coming from behind them. And usually this is captured within a medium or a close-up. Hardly ever do we see a character's reaction within a wide unless they feel small and isolated. And then finally, it's the reveal. What are they looking at that might be chasing them in the forest? Who are they talking to? Or what's that thing that they hear? And this can be done from a wide, medium, or close-up depending on the emotion. And the better way to explain this is if you were to remove 1 or 2 of them. Most movies that miss the mark are typically only using 2 of these or just 1 of them. For example, I've seen films that are just action. It's the character doing something, but we have no emotional connection to them, so it has no reaction. We don't see the character reacting or interacting with what their environment is. They're just acting and being action within the space.
You're right.
Or sometimes it's just pure reveal. So this is those overstimulating movies where we're just seeing things happen. There's no reveal. And when you remove one of these pillars, part of the triangle of the 3 things you need, it falls apart. If you were to look at it on a pie chart, the vast majority of your scene is probably going to be action and reaction with very little reveal time. Reveals don't need to go on too long. They're kind of like the cherry on top of a dessert. What you really want is action being amplified by reaction. So the more we see our character being set into the space, the more we can relate to that situation. And if you think about any sort of action film that you have no emotional connection to, that's probably because you don't have a lot of reaction from your character. Now, it's not to say breaking up an action scene or breaking up any scene with tons of reveals is going to save your film, but the rule book I would play is through percentages. If you have a film with a lot of movement in it, whether it's action, horror, or even some sort of fun sci-fi, you'll probably have a lot of action and little reaction and maybe a little bit more reveal. Versus if it's a drama where the main character is really going through a lot, then you'll probably be playing through more reaction and reveal. And each genre has its own, and by lengthening or shortening one or the other, can navigate the audience in the story and give them the emotional pacing that they need to feel connected. Now, obviously, if you have a dialogue scene, it's going to be more reaction, characters talking to each other. But to break that up, you might do a reveal. It might be an insert shot of something that we need to see in order to build the stakes, and then back to now a new reaction to the reveal that we just saw. And then to break this all up, we need some more action. So now that you have this sort of formula to pace a scene and piece it together, let's go into the edit and dive into the process of finalizing a scene with this formula involved. Which leads me to the sponsor of this video, which is Filmora by Wondershare. Look, if you've ever opened up Premiere Pro or professional editing software, chances are you were overwhelmed the first time you did it. You're reminded of how complicated the editing process is, not to mention their big price tag. I dove into Filmora and I was surprised at all the features that it had that Premiere Pro was missing, not to mention how simple everything was. I was given no tutorial or guide, even though they were available. It's pretty intuitive and self-explanatory. So using the action, reaction, reveal, I'm gonna edit together a very quick little sequence from our web series. It's gonna start with this opening shot of Jackie waking up. You want to have like a pool of your shots available. So what I'm gonna do is just drag and drop the shots that I know worked out. And sometimes just starting with one versus the other is kind of fun. So for example, in our first episode, we started with action, but in this one, it might be fun to start with reaction. What I'm gonna use is this opening shot of her eyes peeling open and slowly sitting up. Another big tip of editing is blocking an eye line. If the character's arms shift really fast between two shots, or their head moves and their eyes jolt around between the two cuts, it's not going to work. So this take, I don't think worked, because if you notice, she gets up and then she kind of is like out of frame. So maybe we can throw this in. And what we can do is an easy way to cut two shots together is to cut on a movement. So see how she's starting to move her head here? I'm gonna do the blade tool and I'm gonna cut and move that into this one where she sits up. The biggest mistake that I made early on in film was that I felt like I had to show everything. But sometimes just cutting straight into the moment feels way better. What I love about this is it's got check marks beside it. So if I've already used it, I know not to go back and grab that shot. Oh, I like this. It kind of starts with her pulling the arrow out. So we don't even know why she's doing it. This acts as a reveal, so showing our space, also an establishing shot, and also tapping back into action. You always want to be motivated in the edit by movement. So I like this. We pass by that tree. The movement kind of stops, so we're just going to trim it right before we get to that point. And then let's see. This feels good. She's got her arrow and she's walking up to camera. And what does she see? Another one of hers. So I edited together this quick little sequence of reaction, reveal, action, reaction, reveal. So you can always start with one and then go into the other. But now that we've pieced this together, I want to show you some of the cool tools that Filmora has and why I've really enjoyed using this as an editor. The first is that any clips that I want to quickly throw into my timeline, they come into this media pool. First tip when it comes to editing anything is edit with a color grade on it. If you're shooting flat or raw, it becomes kind of boring and super neutral. So what I like is just to have a little bit of a look. So in Filmora, they actually have adjustment layers, and always grade with adjustment layers, because you're probably going to want to tweak and adjust each individual shot, but have an overall look. I'm also actually just gonna use 2 adjustment layers. You'll notice why in a second. So over here, we've got the color tab already open, and I'm going to first off put my LUT preset that I imported through here. And you can simply import your LUT presets by pressing add. Now with my other LUT now I'm going to apply is using the LUT presets that they have in Filmora, because they've actually got a couple really cool ones. The one I'm going to use is the Harry Potter LUT. So now that I've applied the Harry Potter LUT, the footage still looks kind of flat and boring. That's fine, because the color grading in this is ridiculous. I'm going to start by doing my basic grade, which I usually just use these presets in here. We're going to crank the contrast. We can just crush that down. Let's make it just a little more contrasty. But you're like, Zach, this also looks just super flat. Well, what we can do is boost up the saturation. By going into HSL, we can start tinkering around with specific colors, which I think is really helpful. So by changing the hue of, let's say, the reds, I want this red jumpsuit to pop right out. Maybe lower it just so it's not too crazy, and then just boost the luminance. That feels good, but everything else just feels like it's got this blue wash. So we can just go into the blue hues and change that to maybe more of a teal, which is gonna make those reds pop out. Lower the saturation, so that way we just have our main character kind of popping and it looks a lot better. And if you, let's say, are getting too much of your shot affected by a LUT, you can also just go into protect skin tones and change its strength based on the skin tones within the shot. I have this ice blue one, but it desaturated her skin too much, so I actually have this neutral one, and it looks pretty great just out of the box. Now I've graded and pieced the scene together, and the nice thing is Filmora actually creates proxies out of your clips. So these are all 4K shots. So if it looks a little lower res, that's because it's created proxies so I can edit with it better. And then what I can do is render and it'll relink the shots so that it works better. But this feels super groovy. Okay, and then I'm just gonna drag and drop this 2:3:5 aspect ratio that I have and put it on another layer, stretch this bad boy out, and it looks like a freaking movie. 2, 1. One of the issues is you can hear my dialogue, but they have this AI audio splitting software. If we right click onto this, go into AI vocal remover, what this is going to do is it's actually going to divide the audio tracks so you can choose what levels of dialogue you want to have. So I just want Jackie's audio and I don't want my direction. So what I can do is I will mute the original track and then just have Jackie's breathing. So there's one that's called background and one called voice. We're just going to use the main voice and remove my dialogue, and here's how it sounds. 1. And then if I want to enhance this to make it feel like a full sequence, what I can do is actually just go into media, actually audio, and find the sound effects that I want. So I can just even just search. I'll go forest, see if that's available. Wind. Perfect. It's haunting. It's scary. Let's drag and drop it and throw it into this scene right here. Boom. And because it's tapping into a downloadable library, I don't have to leave my editing software. I can quite literally find everything, which makes this process like stupid easy. Why doesn't everyone else do this? And then I can just change the volume by going like this. And if I want it to fade in, instead of having to like throw in transitions or grab a pen tool, I can just grab this little guy. And I'm going to say right now, Filmora is just really revolutionizing the game. And pull it up. Stop. I always like to add in at least 3 sounds into my project file, but because I've been able to use this audio separation, I can keep the original sounds like the foot crunching, her breathing, and isolate my sounds of speaking and directing, which is annoying, and have that removed. If you want to add titles, you can easily grab like simple ones that work really well, whether you're making a vlog or just something very basic that you want to have thrown in. You grab from their pool of effects and titles. If you are looking for inspiration in the editing process versus having to draw from a sometimes empty well, as some of us editors do, then I would say take a look at Filmora and let me know if the action, reaction, reveal strategy works for you. I absolutely loved making this video, and if you want to learn more about the filmmaking process in a less YouTube tutorial flavor and more specific, you can take a look at my course, The 4-Week Filmmaker, where I will dive even deeper into the action, reaction, reveal formula and share with you all my inner secrets of how to shoot, direct, edit, produce, and get films out there to the festival circuit so that people actually see it. I love you guys. Thanks for watching, and peace.